is important to remember
its relation to material,
theoretical and practical knowledge.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Halo guys. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello guys.
we're from first group
We are going to deliver you our material with the title is Philosophy of
of Islamic Education as a Science. So without wasting your time,
Let's get started. Okay, the first of all, definition of philosophy of Islamic education. There are 3 points of view. The first, philosophy of education based on Islam. The philosophy of education based on Islam is a philosophical analysis of education based on the main source of Islamic teaching, namely the Quran and Hadith. Islam in this case is used a foundation in analyzing, synthesizing, and prescribing the problems of human life in developing the potential of themselves and others. So, the philosophy of Islamic education is a philosophical study of educational issues based on the main source of Islamic teaching. Okay, the second is Islamic philosophy of education. The philosophy of Islamic education is the thought of Muslim philosophers about education in the form of human activities in developing their potential in the revelation to God, nature, and themselves. Education, in this case, is not understood narrowly, namely learning activities in schools or madrasa alone, but is the education in a broad or unlimited sense, namely all human activities in humanizing humans being, both in themselves and in the others. In this sense, the philosophy of Islamic education is the implementation of Islamic philosophical views in the field of human experience called education. The philosophy of Islamic education can also be understood as the organized thought activity that makes Islamic philosophy a way to organize, harmonize, and integrate the educational process. Okay, the third, philosophy of Islamic education. Philosophy of Islamic education is a philosophical analysis of the problems of Islamic education that is theoretical or practical. In this sense, it can be concluded that the philosophy of Islamic education is a philosophical analysis of various issues of Islamic education, or philosophical theories about education in Islamic society. From this explanation, it can be concluded that although at first glance they are different, they basically have something in common, namely the same study of Islamic education from a philosophical point of view. So, the philosophy of Islamic education includes all 3 perspectives and all 3 are interrelated. Thus, the philosophy is Islamic education is a synergy between Islamic philosophy, and philosophy of education. So, that to understand the philosophy of Islamic education requires a good understanding of Islam, philosophy, and Islamic philosophy, especially on the matters related to education and philosophy of education. Okay, next, before discussing the object of study of philosophy, there are 3 aspects of the philosophy of education, namely ontology aspect, epistemology aspect, and axiology aspect. The first, ontology aspect. The ontological aspect is the view of life of human as the main actor of education, in such a way that it affects the goals desired and sought to be achieved by human themselves. This ontology is necessary for every human being who wants to learn truly about this universe and is useful for the study of empirical science such as physics, sociology, anthropology, medical science, cultural science, engineering science, and others. Epistemology aspect. Epistemology aspect is another name for the material logic that discusses knowledge. Epistemology is the study of knowledge that examines how to know something. Okay, the last but not least, axiological aspects are closely related to values or change in the behavior of educational process or activity. Axiology basically talks about the relationship between science and value, whether science is value-free and whether science is a value-bound, because it is related to value. Axiology examples of activities are spiritual maturity, emotional maturity, and intellectual maturity. What is the object of study of philosophy of Islamic education? In terms of object, every scientific discipline is always divided into two, namely the material object and the formal object. Okay, the verse. The material object is the main raw material of science, which is more general and macro dimension. The material object of the philosophy of Islamic education is all exciting realities, namely God, human, and nature. Whether there is a physical, empiric nature, or there is a non-physical and metaphysic. Okay, next, the second is formal object. The formal object of philosophy of Islamic education is the nature of man from the point of view of Islamic education as a human effort to understand God, nature, and man himself. So that humans will be able to understand who their God, themselves, and the universe. In more detail, it can be explained that the philosophy of Islamic education focuses on the fundamental questions about education, including what is the purpose of Islamic education, and its differentiated question, what is the nature of man? How does one acquire knowledge? By knowledge, what are the moral standards to which humans should be held?
Okay, now I will explain you about the various methods that we use when we want to study about philosophy. So, the most fundamental thing about the study of philosophy, including the philosophy of Islamic education, is the method, or way the philosophy works, namely dialectic, which is conceptual analysis by asking a series of questions, a number of answers, and finding various implications of this answer in a continuous circle without the end of the point. So when we talk about the method, there are two important things that we will talk here. So it is dialectics and analysis. So dialectics, according to Socrates, is an understanding that involves dialogue to understand a particular problem, but analysis have a role to explaining something by comparing some various meanings. And then for the next, we're going to talk about the method that we use when we want to talk about or studying about philosophy. Okay, now for the first one, we're going to talk about the first-hand method. So the method is developed by Max Weber from Germany, and it is the method to understand the object of research through insight and empathy in capturing and understanding the meaning of human culture, values, symbols, thoughts, and human behavior that has a dual nature, and understood as knowing what other experience through an imitation of one's own experience, and the essence that must be captured by researchers is in form of meaning that is not empirical, holistic, and cannot be directly captured by human sense. So it is the way to understand human social attitude with seeing the point of view of the individual that we want to research, but usually done by interviewing and observation. So the essence of this method is when you try to feel what the other people see and experience the world. So the next method is interpretation method. So it is the next method of the first method that we taught before, and it's fully different with the first method. So the first 10 process must be followed by this interpretation. so that the meaning captured by the object can be communicated by the subject. So, in this interpretation method, have a case function as a method of revealing, explaining, and translating a reality. So guys, this method is when you try to translating text or Islamic teachings in order to understand Islamic value or teaching value, education value, and etc. Okay guys, so for the next we're going to talk about the hermeneutic method. So this method is a little bit similar with the first method or the first hand method, but this method is more focused on the text and experience and have a point to understand deeply with something invisible. So in hermeneutic methods have aims, purpose to seek and find the meanings contained in the object of research in the form of human life phenomena through understanding and interpretation. So I have an example. So when you want to understand about the Holy Quran, you have to check the first, and then you have to search what experience about Islam that explain about the process. And then for the third, we have inductive and deductive methods. So in every science, there is the use of induction and deduction methods. So according to what is called the empirical cycle, the cycle includes 5 steps. So it is observation, induction, deduction, and then study and evaluation. So between induction and deduction, there is a hermeneutic circle of namely from general to specific or specific to general and so on. In the exercise of philosophy induction, the essence of something is found in the singular or individual, such as philosophical generalizations are called transcendent understanding. After that, we have comparative methods. So in the philosophical research, comparison can be made between figures or texts and can be made between systems or concepts. So comparison forces us to firmly determine similarities and the differences so that the nature of the object can be understood more deeply or purely. Comparisons can be made with other objects that are very different and far from the main object, or vice versa with objects that are very close and similar with the main object. Okay, now finally we're on the last method. So it is heuristic method. So it is the method to find a new way scientifically to solve a problem. So philosophy is always looking for a new vision or understanding because every theory always only explains experience and observation temporarily. So the main of this method is you have to promoting creative thinking and discovery a new concept of Islamic education with exploring the new concept.
Education philosophy is four. What is first is Quran, Hadith or Sunnah Nabi, Ijtihad Sahabat, the last, and the thinker, the wisdom thinker. Okay, we will to Al-Quran. The Al-Quran is the first and main source of defines the form Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Its meaning, its relation to science of Al-Quran encourages humans to think with the clear minds of the knowledge from any and various source. Invariable in the continue of Al-Quran, yang mana Al-Quran ini bersifat sebagai pertama dan bersifat keabsahannya sebagai sumber dari filsafat. Itu is hadis. The second sort of philosophy of the Al-Quran is hadis. What is the passion of hadis as prevention through the words of the Prophet Muhammad SAW, yang mana hadis ini sebagai sumber filosofi yang kedua setelah Al-Quran, yang mana dalam kita ketahui hadis merupakan riwayat Nabi yang bisa menjadikan sumber acuan untuk menjadi sumber landasan berfilosofi. The next is ijtihad. Ijtihad, the effort of achieve something through the Al-Quran and hadis. Ijtihad as meaning gagasan para pendahulu, yang mana pada gagasan yang pendahulu ini disebutkan dalam bukunya Ustadz Mahfud Junaedi menghasilkan pemikiran-pemikiran baru. Yang Muslim yang terkenal ada Al-Kindi, Ibnu Sina, dan Al-Kawarizmi, dan tentunya banyak lagi. The last of Western thinker. The fourth is opinion, Western, and science. It's also important to realize and believe that philosophy is the form, intellectual, and fundamentalist. Western literature with the West a significant of influence to current Islamic civilization. The Western thinker, it's meaning para pemikir Barat. Para pemikir Barat ini menjadikan landasan acuan yang terakhir untuk dalam sebagai sumber-sumber filsafat, yang mana di sana banyak sekali perkembangan kemajuan Islam, perkembangan pemajuan pemikiran-pemikiran yang dilandaskan untuk menjadi landasan sumber untuk pemikiran sumber filsafat Islam. I have our urgency which relates to source of philosophy is the book, which is explaining systematic and make us always think and find the new ideas, which a student can at least take you on 4 point and relation is the material. I have urgency or fifth relates to source of philosophy is the book. Refleksi kali ini membahas tentang bagaimana sumber filosofi itu berkesinambungan dan saling komprehensif, yang saling membenarkan dalam satu sama lainnya. Pada urgensi untuk pembelajaran ini menjadi landasan untuk kita bisa diterapkan dalam kehidupan sehari-hari dalam melaksanakan 4 poin sumber-sumber filsafat.
Okay, the last one, my conclusion. The philosophy of Islamic education is a philosophy of education that is not limited by the Islamic institutional environment alone, or by Islamic science and experience alone.
Philosophy in Islamic context. So it is important to remember that philosophy has many perspectives, and each perspective connected each other, and it's helped us to understand the relationship between religion and Islamic learning.
Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay guys, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you.